Coming to paperback and e-readers everywhere, East-themed horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a wicked werewoman in this action-packed, all-new East-themed series adventure. Pre-order your copy of East-themed horror of the Hyena Woman on Amazon.com today. One of my viewers wanted to know what gimmick storytelling is in comic books. And in order to understand what gimmick storytelling is in comic books and why it is bad for comics, you have to understand what a gimmick is as connected to a story paradigm in comics. Now, a gimmick is something that a creator uses to get the reader's attention. Now, gimmicks are things like Batman's bat costume, or Spider-Man's ability to shoot webs and stick to walls, or Iron Man's armor. Those are the gimmicks that get the reader's attention and give us the visual of that character. And those visuals get us interested in the character to pick up their books. Now, the gimmicks are the flash that grab the reader's attention, but the substance of the character is the foundation of their story. So the gimmick gets your attention for that minute, but it is up to the writer to write substantive stories that make us care about that character. And in order for us to care about that character, we need to see that this character has a mission and that this character has a motivation for going out here and fighting the good fight. So yes, while Batman dresses like a bat, what makes readers care is the story of Bruce Wayne, a 8-year-old boy who wound up losing his parents due to a criminal murdering them, and his quest to get justice so that no one else suffers like he did as a boy. And the story of how Bruce Wayne becomes Batman and then becomes the world's greatest detective. This is the thing that makes readers care about the Batman character and care about following his adventures as he takes on members of his rogues gallery. Now, many of the characters in Batman's rogues gallery have gimmicks like the Joker, the Penguin, the Riddler, and Catwoman. However, it is the stories around these characters that make us care about these characters, and a lot of times it is the psychology of those stories that is the motivation for readers to get into the stories of a character like Batman. So when you have characters in comic books, what may get people's attention is the gimmick, but the gimmick has to be followed with very compelling storytelling, because it is the storytelling that makes the reader care, and it is the way the hero overcomes the obstacles from arch enemies and struggles in their personal life. That is what motivates readers to keep picking up the adventures of these characters every month. Now, many comic companies will have a bit of a challenge as a character's adventures go on over the years and even the decades to try to keep sales up. So sometimes you'll have a run of stories that really don't pick up and get the sales. So what some writers will do is create a gimmick to get the reader's attention so that they can see what's really great about the character. Now, good gimmick storylines are things that incorporate things that are core to the ideal and the mission of the character. For example, there was a storyline done by Mark Grunwald called Captain America No More, and in this story, Steve Rogers is told by the Commission that they own the title of Captain America, and that if he wants to continue being Captain America, he must go out here and operate under their auspices. Now, your Steve Rogers is a very ideal person, and he believes in freedom. And since he believes in freedom more than the costume of Captain America, he then gives up being Captain America, and the Commission then decides they're going to get your John Walker to be Captain America, because they believe anyone can be Captain America if they are trained. They don't really believe in the values and ideals that Steve Rogers has, and they believe that they can go get somebody else to fill the role. Unfortunately, over the course of the storyline, we see that not anyone can be Captain America, and that it is the morals and values that Steve Rogers has that makes the Captain America character who he is. Now, this storyline was done over the course of 2 years, and this storyline became iconic because it made us appreciate who Steve Rogers is and the values and ideals that make him Captain America. Now, the gimmick here was to make a commentary on no one else could be Captain America, and as they deconstructed the Captain America character, they built it back up, showing us that what makes Steve Rogers a hero is inside of him, and that story became a classic for many readers. Now, another organic story based on a gimmick is the Armor Wars, and this story was where Tony Stark found out his technology was being used by criminals and set out on a mission to stop that technology from being used. Now, both of these storylines, they went out here and were able to rejuvenate interest in a character who was already suffering from struggling sales because the customers had taken him for granted, and these storylines made the reader appreciate these characters even more. So Gimmick Storyline in and of itself isn't really bad, but what makes it bad is the fact when you have creators out here who use it as a crutch, but then don't see that using it as a crutch hampers their ability to tell stories. Now, back in the 90s, we started to see the gimmick storyline being used more and more because comic publishers saw that these gimmicks, such as Captain America No More and the Armor Wars, were generating lots of sales. And since they saw that these storylines were generating lots of sales based on these gimmicks, a lot of creators started using these gimmicks as the way to tell their stories. Now, originally, most stories were told organically based on the foundations of the character. However, since many of these gimmick books were selling a lot faster, a lot of creators started using gimmicks to go out here to get the reader's attention, and they hoped to shock the reader into buying the next issue. So you would oftentimes have your stories in this gimmick era of the late 80s and early 90s. You would have creators going out here focusing on not trying to tell a story in an organic fashion where the hero confronts the adversaries that they face in their personal and their superhero lives, overcoming those obstacles with some ingenuity or resourcefulness, instead of trying to create organic stories like we got in the 80s, such as Acts of Vengeance or other storylines which usually ran 2 to 3 issues. We started to get these gimmick storylines where everything would either conclude in a shocking manner with something like a death, or there would be the character losing their powers, or they would lose something essential to them, like Captain America losing his shield. And these gimmick storylines, what they did was they wound up making it where instead of us getting compelling storytelling, we started seeing writers trying to pander to the audience, trying to get more sales by trying to outshock the last event. And as they tried to outshock people with the next event, the character's development wound up falling by the wayside, and the storytelling wound up falling in quality. So instead of writers focusing on trying to define a character by things core to their mission, we started seeing people coming out here and building up a story so that a character would put on a new costume, going out here creating storylines where your characters wound up having to deal with a death as related to one of their core supporting characters, or a character would wind up being mutilated in some horrific fashion. Everything was done to shock the reader, and everything was all about shocking the reader and getting the reader's attention in a very shocking way, so that they would be just so shocked that they would want to go out here and pick up the next issue. Unfortunately, this gimmick storytelling started to wear on the audience because when it comes down to storytelling, if everything is shocking every moment, the reader has no time to process what they're reading. And whenever you're doing a run of stories like I'm doing right now on the ISIS series or the E-Steam series or the John Haynes series, you do need a break because having all of that high intense action every issue, it can be overwhelming for a reader. And it's even worse when you have everything shocking every second, because every second that you have something shocking going on, where there's a death, a mutilation, or a new costume, or whatever is going on, it just is too much for the reader to process, and it just gets to be very tedious over time. Because a lot of times when you have these writers who come in here and do these shocking events, they really aren't very compelling, because the whole thing is you see them coming, and the whole point is you stop caring, because every time there's a story, there's going to be some shock event, and the shock events eventually start to numb the reader because they've been shocked so much that they stop caring about the character. And the great irony is that the creators create these stories because they want to shock the reader into coming back and appreciating the stories and the character. But when you do too many gimmick storylines, you wind up alienating the reader. And when you alienate the reader stops caring, and they just give up on the character. And this is what happened during the Extreme Era of Marvel Comics in the mid-90s. There were so many shocking gimmick storylines that it just got tedious to the reader, and many of these storylines wound up becoming so shocking that they stopped making logical sense. For example, there was the Crossing storyline, where readers were told that your Tony Stark was a pawn of Kang, although readers who had read over 300 issues of Iron Man, issues of Tales of Suspense, and the Avengers all knew that this just wasn't true. And in the Clone Saga, readers were told that the original Peter Parker had died and not the clone back in the early 120s of the Spider-Man series, and this was a shocking point that really was proven not to be true, because if anyone read the original clone storyline, they knew it was the clone who died, not the original Spider-Man. Unfortunately, because Marvel was so desperate to try to keep readers buying, they thought these gimmicks would be so shocking that it would lead to big sales, but all these gimmicks did was wind up leading to many readers leaving Marvel Comics and walking away from the titles. They were tired of the shocking gimmicks, which were all about building up to a lot of flash but not having any substance, and many of these stories wound up doing damage to many of these characters' foundations and their structures, and it wound up alienating many of the readers who had been reading these books for many years. So gimmick storytelling, when it's done too much, it drives readers away, because readers want to see substance as related to these characters. They want to see substantive character development. They want to see stories that show us why this hero does what they do, and why what they do has an impact on the lives of people. And that's something you can't see when somebody's constantly flashing a gimmick in front of you, because when people flash gimmicks in front of you, all you're doing is being dazzled by the tricks, being dazzled by the flashy new costume, being dazzled by all of these stunts that are going on, but you're not seeing anything compelling as related to the substance of the character. You're not seeing anything that continues to motivate them to continue on in their mission. You're not seeing anything that helps them overcome any sort of obstacles, and you're not seeing anything that shows us how this hero's journey relates to our lives. And that's why gimmick storytelling, when it's overdone, goes out here and drives readers away from comics. Now, really poor writers rely too much on gimmicks, and those gimmicks are the thing that show that a writer is not really mastering their craft, or developing their skills, because good writers don't really like to use gimmicks. Like myself, I do not really like to use gimmicks. I like to go out here and build up a character organically and show you how this character's hero's journey shows them overcoming the odds, and shows how this overcoming the odds relates to us. Like, for example, with the ISIS series, I created the whole Goddess Next Door concept to show how the ISIS character was adjusting to life in the 21st century. And while she was a teacher in the 20th century, she now is a student learning about the world. And as she goes where she's needed, she's learning more about people and connecting with people to learn how to serve those people and how to help improve the quality of their lives. So whenever I go out here and I create a character, I want to give them a character transformation arc that shows how this character's mission is related to their journey and how it helps them overcome the odds. And I don't like to use gimmicks, because gimmicks, yes, they'll get your attention for a minute, but a substantive story is going to resonate with the reader and make you care about them for years. So when I go out here and do a story, I want to give you a story that makes you care about the character, make you care about the mission that they're on, and make you care about why they're doing what they're doing. Because for me, I don't want to go out here and use a gimmick to go out here and have it where every book there's a shocking death, every book there's a new costume, every book there's some sort of something where the headquarters is destroyed or something is destroyed, because that's not the focus as I see it for myself. No, I want you to focus on the characters and their transformation process, because when you have a character transformation, this leads to milestones, and the milestones are the payoff for the story. For example, when I was doing the E-Steam series, I had it where the E-Steam character was starting her relationship with God, and that was built up over the course of several E-Steam series stories, and the turning point was Witches of Eastland, where E-Steam realized she did not really need her demon powers to overcome the witches of the Eastland Academy. So that was the turning point for the character, and it concluded the second act of her story, and that story concluded as related to the first story arc with E-Steam Ascension. So with E-Steam Ascension, it was a milestone because the E-Steam character finally faced all of her demons that were inside of her, and as she faced her inner demons by facing Delilah, who had her physical powers, this is what led to the character reaching the milestone where she no longer needed to be the she-demon anymore. So when you have a character and they're at a milestone point, this is where they have completed one part of the character transformation arc. And the same thing happened with Isis with All About the Goddess, where after In My Sister, My Frenemy, the second act of the Isis first story arc, she started to get the point of going where she needed, and then All About the Goddess, she started to go where she was needed and helped out the Marilyn Marie character, helping her stop a campus stalker who was looking to do harm to her. So I would rather do stories with milestones, because that's the way Stan Lee and Jack Kirby used to do. They used to do stories as related to a character reaching a milestone, because the milestone showcased that the character had grown past a point, they had overcome obstacles, and they were on the journey to transforming as heroes and learning more about different things, and those things were helping them develop and grow as characters. Instead of the focus being on the gimmick, which was powers, I wanted to focus on the person, because the person is the person readers are having a relationship with, and it's that person that makes us care about their stories. So I want you to care about the characters and their stories, because if you're focused on the flash of a gimmick, you're not seeing the substance of these characters, you're not seeing people, and you're not seeing people you want to be friends with and want to spend time with. So in a comic book, it is essential to have a relationship with the characters and the reader, because if the readers don't have a relationship with the character, they have no reason to care, and if they don't have a reason to care, they aren't going to go out here and pick up the book the next month. because a gimmick will get you in the door, but it's not going to get people to stay to continue buying the story. So yes, a gimmick will get your attention for a minute, and wrestlers have used gimmicks for years, but the wrestlers usually want you to see their ring work. Guys like Dwayne Johnson, yes, they'll create a character like The Rock, who is a gimmick of a cocky guy, but what makes us care about Dwayne Johnson's character, The Rock, is his story as related to his character, and that makes us see the great storyteller he is in the ring. Same thing with John Cena. When he first came out, he was the prototype, and the prototype was a character that did not catch on, and your John Cena had to come out here and create a new character with a gimmick of being a rapper. And that Doctor of Thugonomics character, the Word Life character, this is what got him over, and this was the character that made us care so much about John Cena, that made us want to see him become the WWE champion. So creating a gimmick, yes, it will get your attention, but once you get those people's attention, you have to create a story around that character that make us care about that character in order for us to see them overcoming the odds. And that's all part of great storytelling. So you really want to go out here, and yes, you'll have a gimmick to get people's attention, but you don't want to use a gimmick as a tool to carry you from one place to the other, like a lot of comic book writers did in the 90s, because when you go out here and use gimmicks to carry you from one point to the other, the audience gets tired of these gimmicks, they get overwhelmed by them, and then they start to see them as boring, and then they start to ask the question, what's next? And you don't want readers asking what's next. You want them anticipating the next issue, and you want them anticipating seeing this character develop and grow in ways that are compelling without having to use the flash of a gimmick. You want them to see the substance of that character. Now, if you want to pick up some of my stories featuring the characters of the SJS Direct universe, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to pick up my first comic, E-Steam No Good Deed, you can find that comic on Kindle for 99 cents on Amazon.com. And my upcoming comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, will be available on Kickstarter soon. But until then, you can pick up all of those great books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. So if you want to see me make more comic videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. Sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.